the emergency reload or the speed reload with the carbine. That's what we're going to discuss next. So I'm going to break this down into kind of two categories, a beginner shooter and then a more seasoned shooter. And the reason being is dependent upon how new you are to the AR platform, you can have some issues when you think that the gun is just empty. And a more seasoned shooter kind of knows and feels the way the gun is and is used to certain responses just based on feeling because of a lot of rounds down range. So that's what I'm going to break into next. Here's, before we get into the speed reload, here's a couple things that I want you to consider and the reason why I'm kind of having to teach it like this. When we are empty, the trigger is dead. When you have a double feed, the trigger is dead. When you have a bolt over carrier, trigger is dead. And when you have a inline stovepipe, the trigger is dead. The only time it goes click is if you have failure to feed or failure to fire, or a stovepipe that is sticking out of the side of the gun, and then you have like a half hammer strike. And the reason why I preference this is because as a newer shooter, the moment in which the trigger goes dead, a lot of shooters assume it's empty. And that's not entirely true, because it could be a double feed, it can be a inline stovepipe, it can also be a bolt over carrier. So that's not exactly true. So I'm going to teach you some things that if you're a new shooter to look out for and to consider. And as far as the seasoned shooter, it's merely a quick caution indicator light in the event something changes, so to speak. So for the newer shooter who's not used to the way this gun operates, for me, when I feel this thing lock back, I can feel that. When I have a malfunction, the bolt is doing something slightly different energy-wise than what I'm used to feeling. So nevertheless, for a more seasoned shooter, it's up to you whether you want to do what I'm going to call the chamber check. And that's merely where the gun's up on target, I'm firing, the gun stops, I don't know why it stopped, and I break this off the shoulder to look. Now, a couple things with this. If I'm within transition distance and I'm going to pull my handgun, I'm going to shoot. I don't need to look at this at all, because what I'm going to do is go to what I need to do to solve the problem. However, if this is the only thing that I have, I certainly don't want to misconstrued for a malfunction, because at that point, I'm really behind the power curve. So I just take that split second from this position to getting it off the shoulder. Now my finger immediately goes from the fire position to the magazine release, because it's value added vice value lost. If it is truly empty, I'm already going to have my finger pre-staged there. Now, once I'm here and I break it off the shoulder, one of the reasons why I do it is because trying to hold the gun like this is very taxing on the wrist. And this is an 11.5 BCM, so it's pretty light. Considering a 16-inch gun with a can or lasers or anything like that, it starts to pull down. The other thing is, once I bring it right here and I look and I ID, I'm going to turn the gun really quickly. I'm utilizing technique vice strength to help hold the gun in to somewhat of the rib cage area right here. I want it trapped on the inside, so when I bring the mag in and I index it, from there to the ping pong paddle, I'm back up. So it doesn't take a long time. I'm indexing the gun in an upward position, so if I need to, I can quickly move. I can hold and manage more gun like this than I can if I start to lower it down or if I start to straighten it up. Now that doesn't mean I'm always reloading like this. If I'm up on a barricade and I'm really fixed into that position, I'm probably just gonna dump the magazine, put in a new magazine, drop the bolt and go, because I don't wanna lose what I've just set up. So primarily when I start indexing the gun into the workspace, it's based on that shoot, move, communicate type of terrain, or I need to leave wherever it is that I'm at. So a couple things to consider with this, okay? I'm looking into the chamber to see basically, do I see brass? If I don't see brass, I'm doing a speed reload as quick as possible. If I see brass, then obviously I got to go into dealing with a malfunction. Now remember, I'm here in this position, no brass, I turn, I index my spare magazine, bring it up to the gun, drop bolt, and I'm back on. It really doesn't take a long time in order to do this. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not for you. You're gonna have to practice it and figure it out. However, let's go into how we're dropping the bolt, because that's gonna have its own set of issues. For me, once I insert this magazine, I go right from here to the side of the ping pong paddle. And I know that this is considered a fine or a complex move, but I've been doing it for so long, I've never had an issue with it. If you pick one way of doing something, just stick with it, and it doesn't matter whether it's fine and complex. We as human beings are doing things on these guns in order to make certain shots that are fine and complex. So this is just one way to release it, it's with your thumb. The other thing to consider, because what a lot of people do is they'll use this technique right here. And when we start to look at the ping pong paddle on the side of the gun, it's sticking out. And what typically happens is you're matching the curve with the curve of your hand. So what I'm gonna highly recommend, so you don't end up having to hit this 2 to 3 times, is smear it, okay? Come in and drag the hand, palm heel, and drive it straight up. That way you know the bolt is going to drop the way it needs to. The only way that I don't really advocate, and again, this is just me, is the charging handle. And the reason why I don't like people messing around with the charging handle is because when you're in weird improvised shooting positions underneath vehicles and you're trying to do this or get a stroke on the gun, or your sling, single point, 2 point gets in the way, you end up short stroking the gun. And if you short stroke the gun, then what's gonna happen is it's gonna cause a malfunction and you're gonna be in a real predicament. So for me, I like utilizing the thumb. And then of course, for others, you're gonna end up utilizing the palm heel of the hand. Let's talk about magazine placement. Because we're dealing with a large magazine that sticks out of the gun, it allows us generally 2 ways in which to do a reload. The first way is where your hand comes down, indexes here, and we run a traditional bullets forward to the gun. Whenever I'm on my side or whenever I run a chest rig, I am in a bullets forward configuration. Very important to note that when your hand comes in to grab the mag, that you get a good deep purchase on this magazine, because you're going to be driving it in, and I want that palm heel, that hand in there, to be able to seat it, one good firm seat. However, as magazines start to roll to my back, I like to beer can grip. And the reason being is if I got to do this, a bullets forward method, my rotator cuff hurts. So for me, what I like is just being able to take the hand and just lay it on the magazine. And then from there, I'll drive it into the gun. Now there's kind of 2 different ways to beer can grip. I do it this way, and I leave the pinky underneath the magazine. So when I seat, the hand can't move, okay? Because what I find happens to a lot of individuals who beer can like this is that the hand comes in, and either the hand goes into the mag wall a little bit and you lose a little bit of skin, which who cares, but nevertheless, you slip on the magazine and it doesn't get a good firm seat, and you got to come in and tap it again. So we're looking at whatever we're going to do, let's do it in one firm seat to get this magazine into the gun. So you have generally 2 methodologies, bullets forward and beer can, and you're going to have to figure out what works best for you. Usually what happens is you'll find out very quickly, because you'll do something where you'll come up with the gun, magazine, and then you're like, oh, let me flip it around. Well, whichever way it was in the pouch, reverse it, and you'll fix that problem really fast. So nevertheless, bullets forward or beer can grip.